Hey, it's James from 4x4 Earth here, and welcome to track 50 of the 4x4 Earth podcast, Access for All with Bill Schulz from the Bush User Groups United.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing, and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Hey, four-wheel drivers. Welcome back to the podcast. This is track 50, a pretty exciting milestone for the podcast. This is the largest Australian-produced automotive podcast. In fact, having a look at number 2 in iTunes behind NPR's Auto podcast, which I think is a really cool achievement. So a big thank you to everyone who has liked or shared our posts or told a mate about the 4x4 Earth podcast. Really helps us to get the word out there. This week we had another pretty amazing achievement, 500,000 page views in the last month on the 4x4 Earth website. And it's interesting, I've met some people who listen to the podcast and they don't even go to the website, which is Australia's largest free and independent four-wheel drive website. So if you haven't checked out the forum there, definitely get on board. Lots of really interesting conversations, particularly around land access. This is becoming a big topic, which is why we've got Bill Schulz on today from the Bush Users Group United. He organised the rally that we attended. You might have seen some of the video on there. I did a Facebook Live with Ruthie's presentation there. Spoke very passionately about why land access is really important, why land access for four-wheel drivers is important, why land access for all is really important. So I'll include a link in the show notes. Go and check it out. So let's get into our chat with Bill Schulz from the Bush User Groups United. Now, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm an old bugger. Born very young in life, as they say. I'm 73 years old. Been into prospecting for, late 1970s, stuff like that. So I was into prospecting. I've done a lot of things over the time. Fully qualified tradesman, pipe fitter, supervisor, all that sort of nonsense. Now I'm fully retired. Trying to get on with retirement, but everything seems to come in front of that. And it's been a hard battle in the last probably 12 months or more, yeah.
And what's that in regard to? So we met at the four-wheel drive show a couple of weeks ago? Yes,
the four-wheel drive expo come fishing camping show.
Yeah. What brought you to the four-wheel drive show there?
Mainly to spread the word of what is happening with VAC and the Central West Forestry investigation. We need to get it out there because it affects a lot of people, especially four-wheel drivers and fishermen and campers. So we thought that was a great way to do it. It was a part of the Prospectors and Miners Association of Victoria, also to let people know exactly what they do as well. They've been around since the early 1980s. Yeah, they've been getting clobbered as well. They're like a lobby group, the same as what our group is.
Yep.
The four-wheel drive expo, they have over 35,000 people there. I think I spoke to pretty well half of them by the time I finished. We were there for the 3 days. It was very, very good. We reckon that that's where we got a lot of great response from there. And it also projected for our rally that we were having at that stage on the Tuesday the 27th of August. And it was a great way to promote that as well.
The rally, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, the rally, it wasn't a 5-minute decision to do this. But we did this rally for the Bush Users Group United, and it took us months of hard planning and work with that to try and get all different organisations to come under the one umbrella and basically show their support for each other, and also show the government if they're not very happy about this VAC report, which is the Victorian Environmental Assessment Council report that they've brought forward now to the government of today, dealing with the Central West Forestry investigation which takes in three parks, really, or three state forests, which are the Wombat State Forest, the Walford State Forest, and the Pyrenees Mount Cole State Forest. So it's those three. They're a huge, massive area. They're all state forests. And now VAC, under the guidance of the Victorian government, have now put in recommendations that they should be turned in either to a conservation park or a national park or a nature reserve. They sound good. In theory, everyone thinks, oh, beauty, national parks, but no, sorry, national parks are not the way to go. There's more problems with national parks than you can wave a stick at right now. There's a lot of things that do happen in the way of people who use the bush. They're either going to be banned or very, very heavily restricted, where you can do pretty well everything in a state forest. But national parks, they come with rules and regulations that a lot of people don't realise is not beneficial for now or for the future. So that's why we had this big mass rally on the 27th. We got a lot of politicians who were backing us. They were at the rally. They had spoken at the day. We've also got politicians who brought in petitions that they've got over 4,000, almost 5,000 now signed petitions. Plus, they're still going, so there'll be a lot more coming through. There's a group called the Barmah Protection League. They're for the Barmah National Park. They're horse riders and so forth. They're not happy about what's happening up there, and they got 28,000 signatures. VAC, actually, before they brought in their final report, and they've done this now twice under this investigation, they've asked people to submit their ideals or comments. They did that last year, and there was over 640 submissions put in. 2/3 of those were saying that they did not want any change whatsoever. They just wanted to keep the state forest as a state forest. And this is including some councils as well, which are getting affected by this region. They didn't want anything to do with any sort of national park, conservation park, or anything else. So VAC, with the findings, what they said that they found from the first lot of submissions, they brought in a supplementary report where they were then starting to recommend all these states and national parks. They then asked for more submissions. Well, the Bush Users Group United really got involved with this then, and we spent many hours talking to VAC. Now, the VAC people are 5 environmentalists who live in Melbourne. They're not regional Victorians. They all live in Melbourne and just on the outskirts of Melbourne. Now, with the submissions that came in from the final one, there was over 3,700 submissions that went in. The biggest that VAC, or what we can gather, is the biggest they've ever received of any submission. 2/3 of those were even saying, we do not want it. Leave the bush as it is. We're happy the way it's going. We can work with the environment and everything else. Why change it into a state national park which will bring in restrictions or bans? VAC put in their final report, still pushing exactly the same borough as they did before. They had more state and national parks. So at the end of the day, we've been trying to talk to the Andrews government. We have been for a long time, and they've completely ignored us. The environmental minister, Lillian D'Ambrosio, we've been asking for her to come on board so we can sit down and talk to her to explain the things that's going to happen if they bring this in. But we've got completely and utterly snobbed. They were actually invited on the day to talk at the rally. Everyone else turned up. All the other parties turned up, the major ones, and a few independents, but not one from the Greens or from Labor turned up. So what's that telling you? So at the end of the day, we're not happy, and I think the Victorian people should not be happy because it is their rights that's getting taken away.
So who is VIAC, and what is their story?
Okay, VIAC, they're supposed to be an independent organisation which are supposedly employed by the Victorian government. Right, now VIAC is the Victorian Environment Assessment Council. They've been around for a long time, right? They're run by environmentalists, right? No one else who is not a environmentalist can get on that board. We tried. They said we weren't qualified, which made us all laugh. So, the Victorian government, on this particular VIAC report, asked them in March 2017 to investigate the Central West Forestry area, which were the Mount Cole, Wombat, and the Wombat, sorry, I've got a dog barking here. Yeah, Mount Cole, Wombat area, and the Pyrenees and Welford. So they looked at those. So then they report then to the government. But of course, environmentalists, they're full on. They're all scientific environmentalists, but in my books, they have not had any practical experience as such. They're looking all at scientific factors, and half of them, they can't even produce anything to verify what their findings are. They've been saying, right, no prospecting. We will not allow prospecting in certain areas. But we ask them why. They can't produce anything to prove why we should be banned. So they're only saying, no, it's not good. You know, you're digging up things. No, we're not. We're only a blooming bushwalkers with a metal detector. And that's it, you know. And it's absolutely stupid what they're doing. But anyway, they're being asked by the government to investigate. So that's what...
And their recommendations are that we move to... So we convert these state forests to national parks. Now... What are the implications of a national park? What is there that you can do in a state forest that you can't do in a national park?
Okay, in a state forest, you can walk a dog on a lead, of course. In a national park, no, you're not allowed to, right? You can prospect in a state forest, but you can't in a national park or part thereof, right? Some parks, they do allow it to a certain degree, but very much restricts it. Gold is where it is. It's not like I'll go over there and go gold prospecting. You can't, because if there's no gold, what's it? Also, hunting's gone. You get rid of hunting out of a national park, right? You can go hunting in a state forest. In a national park, you can't go hunting. Where do you think all your feral animals are going to live? Because they're protected under a national park. Who are killing all your native animals? The feral ones. They're going to have a ball in there saying, well, gee whiz, we don't have to worry about hunters and all this stuff, and we've got all the food we want. They're the ones that are killing all your wildlife. So that's another problem. The horse riders in a state forest can go into a state forest and actually camp there, right, and enjoy themselves. In a national park, no, you've got to go in or go out. They've also got to stick to gazetted roads, right? They can't go on all the side tracks. But on gazetted roads, your main dirt roads, you've also got four-wheel drivers and motorbikes. So you've got horses competing with them. And that's not good. So you've got those as well. In a state forest, you can go and camp pretty well anywhere. In a national park, you are restricted to certain areas to go camping. In some state forest, or in state forest, you can go bike riding, right? Which is like trail bike riding, not motorbikes, but normal trail bikes. In national parks, you can't. You're restricted. Also, right now, we've seen rock climbers are getting restricted, and that's in the Grampians. Rock climbers are getting restricted in there because it's a national park. In state forests, they can climb. So, wood collecting, right? Firewood collecting. You can do that in a state forest, but you've got to do it in an area which has been allocated for firewood collecting. And it's a reasonably big area that you can go. In national parks, they've reduced that. And in some places where people used to get their wood, would have to travel over 20 or 30 k's away to go and get their wood. And all this sort of stuff. So there's a lot of restrictions. Do you realise if you take a bird feather, out of a national park, right, and a ranger catches you, look out. You can charge it for it, right? But you can do it in a state forest. So there's a lot of things there where you can and cannot do.
It's interesting. I read through the VAC report, and one of the things that concerns me is that land managers can, at their discretion, close tracks either seasonally, temporarily, or permanently, which obviously from a four-wheel driving point of view, that creates some significant concerns because we tend to see this as being one of those overarching sort of trends, is that there's a closure and those closures often don't get unclosed. The tracks don't get reopened. It's another track that, we don't have access to.
That's quite correct. We know right now there's quite a few of those happening up at Bendigo National Park. We've actually got photos where they've now put gates across them. And it's very funny. They say, okay, it stops vehicles from going in, right? They've got an opening so you can walk through. You can't even get somebody in a wheelchair get through there, and you can't even bring in a horse in there. They couldn't get through the gate openings. So what they do is they say, we can't afford to maintain this track or this part of the bush, so we'll just close it off, right? It's just like, okay, we'll just bury our head in the sand and it may go away, and if we don't look after that area, that'll turn back in the bush, and that's something we don't have to worry about until you get a bushfire. Then see how you're going to go. You won't be able to get in there because those tracks are now damaged. We know where they've been dropping trees across the tracks. We've actually also got photos where they've actually gone through with a big excavator and actually dug holes right along the track so no one could ever use them. That's vandalism of our national parks. And that's just not on. These are the things that are happening. I know with the bushfires that we had just not long ago in southeastern part of Victoria, I was talking to CFA people there who fought in those fires. And they are now basically refusing to go into a national park because it's like a death trap. Right? There's so much undergrowth there. There's the tracks are not maintained, and on top of it too, that there's so much weed infestation, which when that dries out, that's like a furnace, and they refuse to go in. Most of your national parks, even if you have a look at the ones we got in Queensland, look what happened to the national parks up there when they had their bushfires early in the year. The national parks that we had in here, they couldn't go in to fight them, they had to firebomb them. State forest, yes, they got in. And thank God for the loggers who are in the state forest, because you can't log in the national park. They were already there with their equipment, with their bulldozers and graders and that, and pushed in new tracks and all this sort of thing, and fire breaks. And that's why they could contain it in a state forest. You can't log in the national park. So all that is then lost. There's more damage and fire in national parks. All your wildlife gets really destroyed there because they can't control it. It gets out of action. And eventually they won't be able to retain it, so there's a lot more of our wildlife. And it doesn't do the environment any good either. So it's not a win-win situation. We've got to look at it. We know that we can go along and work with the environment and everything, long as it's still a state forest. It's basic, and as I put it, there was an example that I normally use. I said it's like getting a jar of Vegemite, taking the label off the Vegemite and putting honey on it, right, and spice it all up. But when you take the lid off it, it's still Vegemite. It doesn't turn to honey, and that's the same sort of thing. You put a label on a national park, right, it's only a state forest with a lot of rules and regulations, right, but it's still really a state forest, but then there's rules and regulations that go with it. It's not going to turn around and become magically fantastic because, oh boy, we've got a national park now, so have a look, it's great. They say it's also good for tourism, the national parks. No, it's not. We're in the bush all the time. We've never seen tourists in there. Right? The only people that go in there are the people who use the bush, and they're your tourists. There's no one else. We don't see busloads of Japanese or Chinese or whoever up there looking at our bush. You're seeing one bit of bush. It's no different than all the others. So why are they doing this? They're saying that they're looking after the environment. It's for future generations. We look at it and say, well, aren't we the future generations of the last generation? I'm trying to protect the bush for my future generation, my kids, my grandkids and their kids. So they can go out and enjoy the bush the same way we have. It's been a tradition now for over 200 years to enjoy the bush. All of a sudden, they're saying no, and they're all city dwellers who are telling us this, right? So it's not a good thing whatsoever.
From a management point of view, what's the difference between a state forest and a national park? So who's actually responsible for the land then?
Okay, national parks is run by the Parks Association, right? And the National Parks Association in Victoria. And DALP mainly, which is the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, right? What we commonly call the Department of Name Change, because every couple of years they change their name. They are the main ones who then look after your state forest, right? I've spoken to, actually, with park rangers, and one lot I spoke to at the four-wheel drive, believe it or not, an Aboriginal state park guy, right? And I asked him, how's your parks going? And he said, absolutely crap. He said they've not been looked after. He said they're in terrible condition. And I said, well, this is what VAC are doing. He said, don't mention VAC to us. So they're not even having it. They're bringing in a lot of the Aboriginal park rangers now because they're handing over a lot of these parks to the Aboriginals. But they're not happy the way it's been looked after. And will they look after it any further, any better? Don't know. It's depending on how much finance that's been given to them by the government to be able to do this thing. Because right now, the actual cost of looking after a national park, the costing's getting cut down and down and down. There's less and less park rangers, but here they are, the government's saying, hey, let's have more parks. We can't even afford the ones that we got now to look after.
Realistically, if a state forest is converted to a national park, there will be a decrease in users of that park, would you expect?
Definitely. I mean, if you were a hunter, would you go to a national park where it was once a state forest? If you were a prospector, would you go to that national park before when it was a state forest? If you're a horse rider, love going camping in that area, would you now go into that area if it was a national park? Same with four-wheel driving. Would you go to that area and hope for the best that the driver kept the track open on their cars? Not really. So these are all the things that will cause restrictions within these areas, because people will not go into a national park if they can't do what they've been wanting to do in a state forest. When that happens, that means not only the parks miss out on a lot of so-called tourists, but also so does regional towns that rely on these people to come up there. When those people come up, they spend money, and good money, right? They spend it in the hotels, caravan parks, bakeries, butcher shops, buy fuel. All this stuff. A lot of these regional towns actually depend on bush user groups coming up there, and they depend on that for their livelihoods. If they don't come, they haven't got a livelihood. If they haven't got a livelihood, then the town starts to collapse. It's not does any good for regional Victoria and their economy. And these people also, you've got to remember, these people spend an absolute fortune on their hobbies, right? I know friends of mine are in the prospecting game, and they'll spend $15,000 more dollars on their hobby. Now, that's just before they go away. I know guys in four-wheel driving stuff, they buy four-wheel driving gear, right? People in horses, they buy horsing gear, right? Everyone buys gear to do their hobbies and their, whatever they want to do. If you restrict them from doing that, they're not going to buy the gear. So on top of it, it's not doing the Victorian economy any good. And this is happening all over Australia right now. So it's not doing the Australian economy any good. So it's a snowball effect, right? And nobody gets any benefit out of a national park. In regional Victoria, you will have closures. If you get a caravan park, it'll close down. You've closed the town down. Because where do you think all the bush user groups, if they're not staying out in the bush, will stay in a caravan park, right? So they're going to spend money in that town. But if you close down a caravan park because no one's using it, you've closed the town down. As soon as you do that, you put pressure on the local people of that town. Where are they going to get enough money to be able to survive? Where then is people going to get employment if they lose their job because of it? I know of about 4 different caravan parks have already told us, if this comes through, we might as well close down. As soon as they close down, the town goes. And we know that because we've spoken to the people of the town as well. Everyone is very, very concerned. But here they are pushing for more. Right? We know the Great Forest National Park they're pushing for. The Emerald Link, which is not far away, that's up in the top part of Victoria and New South Wales. It's down, in the corner part. Then also there they're talking about creating now, right along our coastline, pretty well all of it, a marine national park. What's that going to do with the industries down there and people's enjoyment of fishing? There's a lot of areas you can't go fishing even now, around Cape Patterson and all that sort of stuff, because it's a national marine park. So they're going to bring in some more of these. They think this is great fun. But it's not. It does not do the economy or anyone else any good. Then the government, federal and state, are very concerned about mental health. I know a lot of people who come up the bush to do their activities and their enjoyment as a stress release. They love going up to the bush and getting out there with their mates, sitting around a campfire, having a few beers, right, chatting away there, go out on their motorbikes or prospecting or horse riding, you name it, whatever they do in a normal state forest, and enjoy themselves. It is a stress release. And we know, and I was actually talking to them a couple of days ago, we know police force mob who come up here and go prospecting. They said, mate, that's our release, that's our stress release. And these guys are really into high demand in a stress job. They come up here to stress release. How do you think they're going to feel knowing that this thing could be hanging over their head so they won't be able to, or get restricted to be able to do it? What sort of stress are they going to go into there? That puts more force and more problems on our mental health. So we're pushing like mad right now to let the people of Victoria to contact their politicians, get on to talkback radio, speak to their local newspapers, and voice their concerns and say, sorry, enough is enough. We don't want any more national parks. Leave it as it is. Slowly but surely, we're losing nearly all of our state forest. Changing it into a national park is not going to do any difference because they haven't got enough resources anyway to try and do anything except change the name of Wombat State Forest to a Wombat National Park. And that's the only thing that will be changed. Nothing else will except the rules and regulations that go with it. Spoke to a lot of park rangers. And they've also turned around and they said, yeah, we'll probably get about 3 or 4 years of finance to look after it. He said, then that'll be cut back. And he said, everything will go back to normal, except it will have a status of a national park label on it with the restrictions that go with it. So who's benefiting it? Nobody.
So we're about halfway through our discussion with Bill. We'll come back next week to finish off with it. So stay safe out there and hopefully I'll see you on the track someday. Bye.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.